Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a review for you of these two little guys right here. This is the Zieba knives MS-3 and MS-2. First off, I want to thank my buddy Andrew for donating these to the channel. Basically, he gave them to me, said, Nick, do the reviews. All I ask is that when you sell them, you give the money to charity, and that's just win-win. Charities get support, channel gets support, and I get to review these knives. So thank you so much for that, Andrew. Next thing, size comparison. First, a couple of atypical size comparison knives, also from the same company, Zieba Knives. Right here is the S2 Mini and the S1 Mini. So all of these are in the same not price range, all these are in the same size range. Certainly, and then some more well-known comparisons. The Spyderco Delica, as always for the channel, and the steel wheel cut jack in the 3-inch configuration, and the Ontario Rat number 1. You can see these are very small knives, all told. So that's something to keep in mind. Next thing, this is by Zieba Knives. And Zieba Knives is it's one guy, and he makes a very, very large line of products, kind of weirdly huge, from kitchen knives, folders, blades, makes everything all at once. These are just two of his many, many folders. But yeah, you can see all his stuff there. And there's actually now a collaborative version of this little guy, of the MS-3, that's being done with Shinola, the lifestyle brand / watchmaking company, which is the same basic knife design, but using rounded titanium and with M390 steel. That's going for $300 versus these two, which are $195. So if you've seen this design before, same guy, it's where it's from. And then finally, because these two knives are actually a lot more similar than they are different, I'm going to go ahead and give a combined review and just highlight the differences where they're relevant. So let's go ahead and jump into the good, the great, the bad, and the ugly of these two very interesting knives here. Okay, so on the good side, first off, as I mentioned in the disassembly video, the construction on these guys is fine. Actually, I would say it's good. It's different. It's not something I've seen really before, which is nice. And I'll keep coming back to that one. But it's got internal washers. It's got everything you need, as well as some other nice details here. Like, for instance, the screw here is a slotted screw here, but it's just a basic flathead. It just looks a little fancier. And if you're going to make a fancy-looking screw, something that takes a very basic bit is always the way to my heart. So that's great. You also have some subtle contouring on the titanium here, which I appreciate very much. You have a nice mirror wash on the blade. I'll see if I can kind of show that off a little bit here. But it makes this guy a little bit more compellingly finished than it might otherwise be, which is good. And I do like the harpoon blade on this guy very much, especially with the little swedge on there. There's a lot to love about this little blade. So, you know, there are some very nice details to this little knife here, which I appreciate very much. Next thing, the ergonomics, particularly on the MS-2, no, this is the MS-3, has very nice ergonomics, which is something I appreciate. The fact that you've got a little bit of thickness here, even for my relatively smaller hands, this is nice, and it fills my hands very nicely and just feels good. Ergonomically speaking, this is a very nice piece. This guy, a little bit less so, but I like very much the ergos on this guy. One thing I like very much on both of these is that they are great in the pocket because they are super compact and super lightweight. Let's throw these guys on the scale. This guy here, which has a 3-inch blade, comes in at 2.22 inches. No, ounces is the term I'm using here. This guy comes in at 1.75 ounces for a 2.75-inch blade. That is insanely lightweight. And the fact that in addition to that, you also have a knife that is supremely compact. If we hold this up next to your Delica, which is kind of usually my paragon of carryability, holy crap, is this thing small. You could fit this guy, actually not quite true on thickness, with the clip included, but you could almost fit this guy entirely within the frame of the Delica. This is a very compact knife, and so carrying this guy around almost feels like you're not carrying a knife at all, which is kind of great, particularly if you're wearing slacks or something like this. So this guy, there's a lot of compelling going on with that. So I like that very much, and that's something you want to keep in mind. The the Shinola version of this might actually be a pretty compelling gentleman's flipper. So there you go. So I love very much carrying both of these guys. They're great in the pocket. Next thing, I gotta say, these are both a fairly unusual set of designs. I don't know of any knives that are like this, strictly speaking. I was sitting there racking my brain trying to figure out, okay, what's similar to this? I mean, in terms of that very vertical profile, the Booz Blade Smoke has some similarity, but this is a very different knife. There's not a whole lot out here. And, I mean, in a world of horses, this is a Zieba. Zebra pun? No? That worked for you? All right, I tried. But look, I mean, it really is unusual, and that is really something I appreciate. There are so many knives that just run together. This doesn't. So I like that very much. And then finally, on the good side, both of these have a very snappy action. Something I appreciate very much. They have great detents. pardon me, they fire 100% reliably and frankly satisfyingly, with a nice little bit of light switch motion, just bam. And then closing them is very nice as well, and very straightforward. So the action on both of these knives is very, very good. So to me at least, that's what's good here, is you get a nice snappy action, an unusual design, nice ergonomics on the little guy here. They're both super compact and lightweight for carry, and the construction details are all very, very good. On the great side, for me, 100%, it's the blades. What you see in here are very, very thin stock on these guys. It's a little easier to show off. By the way, the crowning on the blade of the on the two here is kind of nice, too. You can see a little bit of jimping, a little rounding beside the point. But stock thickness-wise, you're in the same department as the Delica, but it's ground very aggressively, so that you end up with a pretty good cutting knife. Thin stock is a wonderful thing, and it's been applied well here. That makes both of these knives cut a lot better than you might expect. Well, actually, I don't know what you would expect, but they cut pretty well, so that brings me a lot of joy. Also, the steel on both of these guys is a high-hardness AEBL steel. AEBL is one of those steels that's absolutely good to go for everyday carry, especially when it's well heat-treated, and the hardness is a beautiful, beautiful thing. And the other benefit of AEBL is that it is very, very, very stainless. There are very few steels in modern production that are more stainless than AEBL, so that's a nice benefit that you got there. And then with the thin grinds and whatnot, just the blades on these are great. They are great little cutting tools for actually slicing things, which I appreciate very, very much. So that's the great, is the blades. On the bad side, honestly, a bunch of nitpicks and then a couple of substantialer issues here. First off, the price on these guys is not bad, but it's also not good, so I don't know where to put it. The price is $195, and that's the same price for either one of these. It's not an awful price by any stretch. In fact, I don't even know that I think it's bad, but it's not a bargain either. It's these feel a little bit pricey, but maybe I'm just crazy. Maybe I'm asking too much. So that's the price. It's the good, the great, the neutral, and the ugly. I don't know. Speaking of things that I really shouldn't complain about, but I'm about to, is that, damn it, the names are wrong here. Because the MS-2 is 3 inches and the MS-3 is 2.75 inches. No, you can't do that. You can't have numbers that don't mean anything. I'm sorry, freaking no. Speaking of things that I'm going to complain about is the logos. Come on. Zieba, I know you like your name and whatnot, but holy crap, man. The logo is like a third of the blade. No, bad. That needs to be toned down a little bit. And he clearly has the ability to do more precise engraving. That would have been way better just down here in the corner here. Luckily, on the Shinola version, it's just got a little feather, so that's nice, but still, not a big fan there. Next thing, I would like to see a little bit of internal milling on both of these guys, because the balance on both of them is a little far back. That's not shocking, given that all of the metal basically is toward the... But both of these are balancing further back. It's more of a concern with the big guy here, with the MS-3... MS-2, ay, ay, ay. But either way, I'd like to see some internal milling on the titanium just to balance that out a little bit more. Not terrible, but it's a thing. There is a little bit of lock stick, particularly on this guy. Again, there's a lot of lock bar access here, so it's not so hard. Nice little cutout, by the way. I don't think I highlighted that, but it's a nice detail. And, yeah, so it's not the end of any worlds, but it is definitely a thing. The MS-3 blade is a little weird to me, because if you look at it here, you can see that there is actually a fair amount of room for that blade to grow in here. They could have very easily gone to the same 3-inch length as they've got on the MS-3 here. MS-2, it's going to kill me during the course of this review. They could have easily taken that to the full 3 inches, whereas, I guess this one isn't even technically 3, but they didn't. And that seems a little weird, both in terms of the blade-to-handle ratio, which is a little bit out of line, and just in terms of, it's a little bit more useful blade. This is getting to the point where it's almost a little too small, whereas I think 3 inches is a nice happy medium for, at least for me, and I think for a lot of people. So, and this also needs a sharpening choil. Not a big deal there. Speaking of things that aren't really a big deal, but I'm going to complain about anyways, there's a lot of that going on right here. The blade on both of these is a little bit close to the edge. I can just barely, if I push my finger into there, touch the edge of the blade. It's not a big concern. And particularly because the stock on these guys are thin, which means the blades are the scales are closer together. I can't talk. Which basically means it's much harder to do that here, which is benefit roughly 2,843,000 of using thinner stock. Damn it, knife makers. But that is something to keep in mind. But it's honestly not as concerning in this guy as it is in a lot of other things, just because it's just barely on the edge where I think it's going to be okay. But I'd still like to see a little bit more wiggle room in there. Things that are just not as okay. The clip on the MS-2 honestly isn't great. You can see that these are using two very different clips. This guy is using a spring clip, and generally spring clips are fine, but unfortunately this has these very sharp corners here, which dig into the hand as you're actually holding the knife, and especially if you bear down, you're definitely going to feel the edges of the clips embed themselves into your hand, which is not super stellar. And frankly, it needs more ramp. This is just a better clip overall, and so I'm glad to see this clip on the Shinola version, which I really do feel like is probably this guy evolved a little further, rather than this one, which I just don't like as much. And then finally, like I said, this guy has that serious hot spot, but it's also got a couple of other hot spots. And so ergonomically speaking, I'm not super impressed with this guy, even though aesthetically I do really like the harpoon blade. So to me at least, that's the bad, and it's not all that much bad. The ergonomics aren't so great on this. The clip on this guy is frankly just not as good as this clip, which is way better. The blade is absolutely a little bit close to the edge, but it's within the margin where I'm mostly okay with it. The logo is absolutely freaking huge. The blade on this guy is a little weirdly short. Got a little bit of lock stick. I'd like to see some internal milling. The names are just weird. And the price is okay, I guess, maybe a little high. On the ugly side for me, first off, this flipper tab is just not good. Take a look at this. You can see here that he has done something that's actually very common, unfortunately, with a lot of knife making on the CNC side, is you get these notches that come very close to the tip of it, and that creates a little point at the end here. I'll see if I can zoom in a little bit. Yeah, you can see there's that little point right at the end there, and that just means that every time you flip this guy, you are digging this little point into your fingertip. And in fact, from just flipping this guy during the review, you can see the consequences of that. It's not great. This is something that I had a knife gripe about, and it's not good. And you can see that this is fixed on this guy by not including that jimping, or you could have included a little bit lower, but not a fan of that. Then finally, unfortunately, I checked his website one more time before the review, and I came across a brand new blog post thing on the site detailing the warranty, which is awful. It's just crappy and full of gotchas. Things like it's only good for the original purchaser. Knives need to be returned with a certificate of authenticity and hologram card. And knives without that have no warranty. All knives sold by the dealer are not subject to the free shopping service, which is ugly. The warranty is voided by damage caused by excessive or aggressive blade flicking, rapid opening or closing of the knife, and that's weird. And so, I mean, overall, there were a bunch of little issues here that are just like, ugly. I mean, he allows disassembly, which is nice, but this is basically a tour of force of what you shouldn't be doing in a higher-end knife warranty. Because this kind of gotcha-filled and evasive warranty just leaves me as a buyer feeling like if I've got a problem, I'm probably on my own, and that's not great. And so those kinds of warranties, whenever I see them, whenever the maker is detailing, paragraph after paragraph of ways that my warranty is going to be voided, it just gives me the sense that he doesn't want to give a warranty, and that's fine, but you need to drop the price if you're selling this knife without a warranty. So I find that warranty just deeply ugly, and So anyways, those are the ugly things to me, is that the flipper tab on this guy is very, very sharp, and the warranty on both of these is very, very nasty. Not nasty, but it's not a good warranty. So yeah, let's jump into your final conclusions here. Conclusions, these are both very nice little knives. I mean, they're both very lightweight. They're both very, very slicey, which is good. They're very unusual, and they are absolutely a joy to carry. These are both very nice in the pocket, this guy particularly. I mean, nice little knives in that way. They've got some quirks. I mean, there are some nitpicks, some minor issues. The flipper tab on this guy needs some improvement, and he needs to offer a more welcoming warranty, particularly for higher-end pieces, because, man, that was just ugly to read. For me personally, I actually ended up, although aesthetically I prefer the MS-2, I ended up preferring the MS-3 by the end of this. As although I don't like this blade as much, the sloping away from it and whatnot. But honestly, the improved ergonomics, the flipper tab is better, the better clip. And the Shinola version is even nicer, if not very, very expensive. So I think I like this guy a little bit more, but I don't know, honestly, they're both pretty nice knives, and if you're looking for something that's lightweight, small, super slicey, and just nicely done, overall, I think these little Ziebas are pretty nice and are likely to run wild in the Serengeti of your heart. Another zebra joke? No? Doing it for you? No? All right. Anyways, I hope this has been interesting to you. Have yourselves just an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. Bye now.